Imagine what your fantasy team could look like today if you had stashed high upside players instead of waiting each new week for the new waiver wire hotness that you have to bid on. In today's video, I am giving you 10 plus stashes with upside. In fact, we're going to talk about 30 total players. So there's something for smaller and larger leagues here. This video series has been very helpful for you guys out there. So let's start. Before we get into my top 10, I just want to quickly talk about some names that should be rostered already. Okay, these guys should already be rostered. Chuba Hubbard. We talked about him on this video series multiple weeks ago. Hopefully he's already on your roster because he is slowly eating his way into being a serious fantasy contributor. Rashawn Johnson, I imagine a lot of people will have dropped Rashawn Johnson after the waiver wires have gone through. However, this is still a day 2 pick that this organization trusts and believes in, and they want to see him out there. He could develop a role. Amari DiMercato, he is in yellow because he's technically not a stash. I would more consider him a spot start if you're in a desperate position. As for Rashee Rice, Josh Downs, those are two names we've talked about. You would have already had them on your team if you watched this video multiple weeks ago that I do every week. JSN, Tank Dell, all those names should already be rostered. They are already in people's starting lineups. Keep in mind, the trade deadline in the NFL is October 31st. So there could be some sneaky ads out there this week for you to get ahead of your league mates. If any NFL trades happen, it will be in the next 6 days, and you want to be ahead of that waiver wire. That's the entire point of this video. All right, let's get to my top 10 stashes. The first player that should absolutely be stashed. I'm really excited about the top 4 in today's video. The first player is Tyjae Spears, running back for the Tennessee Titans, currently available in 66% of ESPN leagues. That number is way too high for me. There's no way he should be available in that high percentage of leagues, and 51% of sleeper leagues. This year, he's the RB36 so far, and he has looked very good with limited opportunities. So far this year, he is 5th in yards per carry amongst running backs, 5.5 yards per carry. His explosive run rate, that is the percentage of his runs over 15 yards. He has the 3rd best mark amongst running backs, 9.7%. His missed tackles forced per attempt, he is 9th. And his yards after contact per attempt, he is 4th. In all these key metrics where we kind of look at how a running back is performing, how efficient they are, he is top 10. Now that is amongst running backs who have a minimum of 30 attempts. Tyjae has been the perfect complement to Derrick Henry this year. He has so much juice and it is fun to watch him. He's currently averaging 8.5 touches per game, and that is what's limiting his upside. However, the reason Tyjae is my number 1 stash this week is because we have heard a lot of reports claiming that Derrick Henry could be traded before the deadline. If Derrick Henry were to be traded, the second that happens, Tyjae is the hottest name on everybody's waiver wire. So if you pick him up now and he gets traded, then great. You have a top 24 running back rest of season and you just fell right into it. Now, if Derrick Henry doesn't get traded, then of course Tyjae goes back to being a handcuff play. All right, the second player that I'm very excited about that should absolutely be rostered in 100% of leagues, and I mean that. I talked about him last week, so if you already heard me talk about him, you can skip this one, but it's very important, and the fact that he's still available in a high percentage of leagues means I still need to tell you about him. That is Kyler Murray, quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, available in 77% of ESPN leagues. That is insane, and over 52% of sleeper leagues. Hasn't played yet, obviously, been recovering from the ACL surgery, and his window is open to come back in the next, I believe, 14 days at the time that I'm recording this. But let's look at what Kyler Murray has done for fantasy in his entire career. You can see last year, he was a quarterback 8 on a per game basis. In 2021, the quarterback 4, same in 2020. And in 2019, as a rookie, he was the quarterback 12 on a per game basis. Kyler Murray has yet to score outside of the top 12 in his entire career on a per game basis. Every single year, he's been a top 12 play, meaning in a 12-man league, he would be a quarterback that you would want at least one of those 12 teams. On average, he's averaging the quarterback 7 finish and 21 points per game. So what I wanted to do is if we look at what Kyler Murray has averaged over his career, if we include his rookie season, where would he rank amongst quarterbacks in 2023 on a per game basis? Meaning his career average versus what we've seen this year. Well, you can see he would rank 6th amongst quarterbacks. He's averaging, at least in his career, more points per game than what Tua Tags has given you here in 2023. He's right behind what Lamar Jackson is giving you here in 2023, and right behind the likes of Herbert and Mahomes. He is a superstar quarterback that's about to be back from injury. A superstar fantasy quarterback, we know, is a huge advantage in your fantasy leagues. And if you get an elite guy, it gives you a massive advantage over your league mates. However, this year it's been tougher to find that advantage. Shout out to Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange who gave me this information. It's awesome to see. You can see in 2022, 2021, and 2020, the advantage you had if you had a top 6 points per game score at the quarterback position. Remember, right now, Kyler Murray is 6th in points per game, his career average amongst 2023 quarterbacks. We can see in each year how big of an advantage it was to have an elite quarterback, except in 2023, people have struggled to find that. You can see every year, almost 6.5 points advantage. In 2023, though, it's under 5. Now, Kyler Murray can be the reason that you win a championship this year. Yes, he's coming off an injury. We have to lower our expectations. But going into the fantasy playoffs, there's a realistic chance that you can pick up this guy for free and he can give you over 20 points per game as you go out and win a championship. He absolutely needs to be rostered. You need to go trade for him in Superflex leagues. He needs to be a priority. All right, the third player I'm going to tell you guys about today, I have discussed before, but again, guys, the whole point of this video is not for me just to dig and find, only new information. It's to look at the percentage of players who are available and find the upside, find the hidden value. And for me, that is Devin Singletary. I'm very excited about rostering him, available in 74% of ESPN leagues and 80% of sleeper leagues, widely available. And that's why I have to keep telling you about him. He's the RB 55 on the year. Keep in mind, all this is at the time of recording this video. Dameon Pierce has been extremely inefficient in 2023 so far. He's not been very good. If you look at his yards per carry, 90th, his explosive run rate, 57th, his touchdown rate, 53rd, his missed tackles forced per attempt, 33rd, and his yards after contact per attempt, 63rd in the NFL. He has not been very good, and I believe, based off what we've seen in week 6, that this team could be looking for alternative options to lead their backfield. In week 6 versus the Saints, the Texans may have already made the switch to Devin Singletary. And you might think that's crazy, but check this out. Devin Singletary in week 6 had more snaps than Dameon Pierce by a landslide, 34-21. And that wasn't a blowout, like both of those teams were in that game. If you look at routes run, 18-7 in Devin's favor. Targets 2-0 in Devin's favors, and carries, this is the only area in which Dameon out-touched, if you will, Devin Singletary. Dameon Pierce, though, saw 0 third down or short yardage use, and Devin dominated early down snaps. I think there's a legit chance in the next 2 to 3 weeks that we could see Devin Singletary take over this backfield. This offense is nothing like what it was last year. Last year, it was let's pound the ball on the ground with Dameon Pierce and just kind of slug through games. No, we are throwing the ball all over the yard with CJ Stroud, and we need a satellite back who can just be efficient for us. Maybe that is Devin Singletary for this team. So you got to get him in your leagues. All right, the fourth player I'm going to tell you guys about, again, very excited about this. This could be a 200 IQ move from you if you pick him up. If you're struggling at tight end, how about Trey McBride? Currently, as I'm recording this video, available in 99% of platforms everywhere. That might change when waivers go through, but at the moment, available in 99% of platforms everywhere. He's the tight end 30 on the year, and as you may have heard, Zach Ertz is going on IR. Now, Zach Ertz is going on IR. That's one point. Now, the second point is the Cardinals, the tight end position is uber important to this offense. Arizona currently targets the tight end position specifically the 5th most times per game amongst NFL teams. Only the Chiefs, Vikings, Jags, Lions, and Giants target the position more. So technically that would be 6, right? So 6th most time per game. And the good news for McBride, who was their second round pick in 2022, they like this guy, is that he was already getting a ramp up in work before the Ertz injury. So it's not like this is just out of nowhere. Oh, okay, maybe he gets opportunity. They were already getting him more and more involved. Look at his opportunities from weeks 1 to 5, and then in the last 2 weeks from weeks 6 to 7. These are his averages. His targets double in that time span from weeks 6 to 7. His receptions almost triple. His receiving yards triple. His fantasy points per game triple. So say triple 3 times fast. But the point is, they were already getting him more and more involved. Zach Ertz is now on IR. They target the position the 6th most times per game in the NFL. No Zach Ertz to compete with. Kyler Murray coming back. We could see some big games for Trey McBride. All right, the 5th player that you should stash is a running back, and that is Zach Charbonnet. He's available in 70% of ESPN leagues and 55% of sleeper leagues. He's the RB66 on the year, and let's be honest. Let's be 100% clear and transparent with you. That is the goal of this video, for you to get ahead of your league mates to beat the waiver wire. Let's be honest, transparency is everything here. Zach Charbonnet is completely irrelevant for fantasy football unless an injury happens to Ken Walker. All right, I agree. I'm on the same page with you. However, we could make the same claim for Ken Walker last year with Rashad Penny. Ken Walker was completely irrelevant for fantasy purposes until Rashad Penny went down with a serious injury. And I am not in any way wishing an injury on Ken Walker. I don't want him to be injured. I have him in leagues. However, look at what Walker did before and after Rashad Penny's season-ending injury. These are the splits. In split, you can see that is when Rashad Penny was healthy. Out of split, that's when Rashad Penny went down with his serious injury. You can see his points per game double. His rushing attempts per game go from 6 to almost 19. And his rushing yards per game go from about 37 to about 82. Now, this is not just a random take. I know some haters always comment on these videos. You're just commenting random backups. There's no thought and effort into this. All right, whatever. Don't watch the video then. It's all good. This is not a random take. I promise you, there's thought behind this. The reason is we have seen Ken Walker deal with groin injuries in the past. Those are something that typically come back up again for players. Now, the running back position is so crucial to the Seattle Seahawks offense, and Charbonnet is very talented. If Ken Walker were to have a serious injury, Zach Charbonnet would be a top 15 running back rest of the year. I am 100% confident. And with how important the running back is to the Seattle Seahawks and how talented Zach Charbonnet is, he just hasn't been given opportunities. For me, Charbonnet remains the best handcuff in fantasy football. And some people may be dropping him because they don't see a chance of him being fantasy relevant. All it takes is one injury for you to have that guy on your bench and go ahead and win your league. And that's what we're looking for with these stashes. All right, the 6th player that I'm going to tell you guys about, which I talked about multiple times in different videos, and I think it's really time to stash him. If you didn't take it seriously the previous weeks, now is the time, I promise you. Demario Pop Douglas, available in 99% of all platforms. No matter where you play, he's available. He's a wide receiver 77 on the year. You can see last week versus the Buffalo Bills, he had his career high in fantasy points, 11.4. He also had his career high in snap percentage. He played 62% of the snaps. His previous high was 41%, and he had his career high in receiving yards with 54. But more importantly, beyond a box score, beyond a spreadsheet, I watch all the games. I do. Just like Dan Orlovsky. I know when he said that, people were like, there's no way he does that. I'm like, y'all know they got condensed games, right? But regardless, I watch all the games. And when I watch the Patriots game, Pop Douglas, he just stands out when he plays. He absolutely stands out. He is the most explosive, dynamic player that this offense has in New England. And regardless of if it's a good offense or not, he is going to continually earn more and more targets. Juju is not the guy. Kendrick Bourne is fine, but there's a chance that we see Demario Douglas become an important piece of this offense as the year progresses. So I want him stashed on my team. Obviously, this is for deeper leagues, but still someone that you should stash. All right, another rookie wide receiver that we should talk about Remember, the trade deadline is soon. So that's the reason I'm talking about this guy. That is Marvin Mims, available in 92% of ESPN leagues and 80% of sleeper leagues. He's the wide receiver 62 on the year. We have seen flashes from him, but he's just been irrelevant because he has no opportunities. He's not getting many targets. He's not involved in many plays. He doesn't play a high percentage of snaps. But similar to Tajay Spears, with Derrick Henry potentially being traded, the Broncos, there have been rumors for multiple years about them trading their wide receivers, specifically Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. If one of those guys were to be traded, like that, Marvin Mims, the hottest pickup on the waiver wire. And does that mean that Marvin Mims is going to be a league-winning player? No, but it means you get ahead of the waiver wire, put some potential on your bench, and see what happens. It can't hurt. I remember when I told people to pick up Rashee Rice, Josh Downs, they were like, this is pointless. These guys aren't doing anything. And there's always a little bit more when you peel back the onion. So to me, Marvin Mims has to be rostered, talented player, second round pick. This is the first pick that Sean Payton selected in the Sean Payton era. I know that they want to get him involved. They're just going to take the right opportunities. All right, the eighth player that I think you should stash, and a lot of people have dropped him, that is Michael Mayer, available in 90% of ESPN leagues and 67% of sleeper leagues. If you miss out on Taysom Hill this week, if you miss out on Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, then go ahead and pick up Michael Mayer. He's a tight end 36 on the year, and it wasn't his best week versus the Bears. I can recognize that. In fact, because of that week that he had versus Chicago, where he was slightly a letdown, he has turned in to being a top 15 dropped player, most dropped player in fantasy this week. He was dropped 131,000 times in sleeper alone. But there are some good reasons why he didn't impress last week versus the Chicago Bears. Shout out to my friend Corey from the Fantasy Stock Exchange. He talked about this on Twitter, and I just thought this was very important context for you to really understand why Mayer was a disappointment. He talked about the fact that Michael Mayer played 46 of 50 snaps before the Raiders put their backups in that game. Now, this is after Brian Hoyer tanked any chance of them winning that game. So his decline in snaps can easily be explained. When the starters were out there, he actually played 92% of the snaps with that crew. I know it says 71% on Sleeper, but in reality, he actually played 92% of snaps with the starters. And shout out to Nathan of PFF. He does great work. He provided some more context in that thread, and he said Mayer ran a route on 74% of pass plays while the starters were in the game. This is still a young player that they are excited about getting involved into this game plan. Now Jimmy G will be back instead of Brian Hoyer. We don't have to watch him again, and we could see a bounce back for Michael Mayer. But this is just the nature of the tight end position. You know, this is what happens. You bounce around, new waiver wire pickup every week, and they go off, they don't. They go off, they don't. Keep Michael Mayer. Let's see if we get some consistency when the quarterback is a little more consistent. And the ninth player I'm going to tell you to stash is another tight end. That is Luke Musgrave. He's available in 73% of ESPN leagues and 60% of sleeper leagues. Similar to Michael Mayer, Luke Musgrave was dropped a lot this week. In fact, he was dropped 143,000 times. However, this is still a young tight end who has shown a lot of special flashes. And outside of the game where he was concussed, in every other game, he's played at least 67% of the snaps. Now, we have Christian Watson, who left that game with an injury. I don't know how serious it is, but if he's missing extended amount of time, we could see Luke Musgrave be a weekly streaming option. So pick him up. He's a rookie. He's uber talented, uber athletic. Something good could happen for him rest of the year. And the 10th player I want to tell you guys about is actually 4 names in total. I want to tell you guys about some, you could call it honorable mentions. I'm going to give it my 10th mark here. Rookie wide receivers that I really love stashing. Okay, let's talk through them. Number 1, Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo is available in over 92% of ESPN leagues and 83% of sleeper leagues. He has been on the field a high percentage of snaps. Outside of the week where he was injured, he's played 86% or more of snaps, and he's averaging over 6 targets per game in an offense that needs a wide receiver to step up, that throws the ball the third most times per game in the NFL. Roster Jonathan Mingo. We see it time after time after time. Rookies getting more and more involved after the bye week. Maybe that is Mingo in this case. Jaden Reed, available in 82% of ESPN leagues and 76% of sleeper leagues. Jaden Reed is interesting to me because we saw how good he was without Christian Watson. And if Christian Watson misses time, he could turn into a flex option. As for Michael Wilson, the third guy I'm going to talk about here, he's available in 76% of sleeper leagues and 89% of ESPN leagues. We've already seen Michael Wilson have incredible games, high yardage marks, 2-touchdown game, and now Kyler Murray is coming back soon. I promise you, Kyler Murray is going to give you more consistent, better quarterback play than what we've seen from Josh Dobbs. The fourth player, Jalen Hyatt, we talked about him last week. However, he keeps getting more and more and more involved in this offense. Last week, he had a career high in targets, and he had 75 receiving yards. So make sure these guys are rostered. Now, of course, that specific take right then for those rookie wide receivers, that is for deeper leagues. If you're sitting here playing in 8 and 10-man leagues, that is probably not relevant for you. But for 12, 14, 16-man leagues, you got to take note here. Okay, to finish off the video today, I did this last week. A lot of people found it very helpful. We know how important handcuffs can be in fantasy football. If you roster the right handcuff and the guy ahead of him gets injured, it could change your entire fantasy world. It really could. You can go from being the worst team to the best. You can go from being middle of the pack to winning the league. So if you roster the right handcuff and the right situation happens for you, it can be the worlds of difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my top 12 handcuff stash rankings. Now, these are players that are available in at least 60% of leagues. All right. Of course, there are better names than the guys that I'm going to bring you, but I assume that those names that I'm not going to talk about are already rostered in most leagues. Okay. Just so we're clear. But my number one handcuff stash is Tajay. We talked about him. We talked about Zach Charbonnet. And by the way, if Derrick Henry doesn't get traded, Charbonnet goes to the top of that list. Number 3, Tank Bigsby, how important the running back is to the Jags offense. If E-team were to go down, he could step in. Tyler Algier, we saw how good he could be without Bijan Robinson last week, right? Kendre Miller, rookie, who is very exciting. Chuba Hubbard, who has got a very important role with the Panthers. Josh Kelly, Chase Brown. I specifically wanted to talk about Chase Brown because he's a very talented player that has not had many opportunities this year. Now, Joe Mixon has been completely average across all metrics. After the bye week, key word here is could, guys. Could the Bengals give Chase Brown an opportunity to win this job? I think there is about a 10% chance that happens. And if you have a free roster spot and he's available and there's not a better guy out there, roster him. Let's see what happens this week. If nothing happens, you can drop him, right? Remember, guys, you're adding these players for free to see what happens. The most likely scenario is that these players don't become starters for you in fantasy football. But as we've seen before in this video series, we've hit many, many, many times and helped people win a lot of games this year because of players that they picked up for free. And you can see the rest of those rankings there. Rico Dowdle is a really interesting one if Tony Pollard were to go down. But that is it for today, guys. I really do appreciate you watching the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you believe is the best stash in fantasy right now? Let me know, because if you comment down below, you're going to help out the entire community. But also, can you do me a massive favor? Go ahead and smash that like button. Absolutely obliterate it, abuse it, take out all your anger on it. I mean, no, honestly, you need to see someone if you're doing that. But no, drop a like to show some love. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe if you like fantasy football. And lastly, if you like the content, if you like me or my co-host Badaki, you like hanging out with us on the streams or you like watching our videos, just know that there is a way that you can support us financially to keep us going. And that is by going to the Flock Fantasy website. Check out the linked comment that's pinned. Use our promo code LAND when you sign up to the website. Not only are you supporting us, but you're also in return getting a ton of perks that you will absolutely love. Rankings for the rest of the season, weekly rankings, over 300 players ranked, dynasty rankings, articles from the best people in the industry, and a personalized DM if you choose that Mother Flocker tier. Outside of that, I appreciate y'all. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.